All right, we're gonna try this again. This is the pilot test number 2 for the Abject Demiurge podcast. I am Alex. I've been a writer my whole life since I was about 11 years old. I am, as some may consider, a failure, as I have never been published, um, despite a lifetime of queries and submissions and rejections and but it is something that I love. It is my art. It is who I am. It is the base nature of my personality is to be a writer, a storyteller, a structure of stories. And um, that is kind of what this uh, podcast is about. So before I go through the explanation of the purpose behind this podcast, this is not a full episode. This is I'm still testing out this process here. And any mistakes that I'm making, I am keeping up for posterity because it is in keeping with the theme of the show. So I'm going to go ahead and do this thing that I have because when I did the last episode, um, which is a failure, but it is still there to view and listen to if you can handle severe audio problems. I don't particularly advise it, but anyway, um, I made a intro. I did not have that last time. I have exhumed my long since dead stop motion animation abilities and am going to do this thing because we're gonna roll this intro thing I made. Okay, I'm kind of proud of that. We're gonna consider that a rough draft of the intro. I'm kind of working on doing a newer version with a few extra things on it. So the purpose of this podcast is to destigmatize the discussion of rejection and failure within creative fields, not just among aspiring artists or people considering dipping their toe into some kind of artistic endeavor, but also for non-artists as well. Um, what I kind of want to do is normalize that conversation. I think a lot of times we hear stories about people, who we aspire to or look up to or you know respect in arts. They'll toss out some examples of their failures or how they got past it, but we don't hear enough conversation, I think. And for people who are still struggling with their arts, that is not enough. I don't believe that's enough. I want to normalize that conversation in as broad a way as possible, um, by talking to artists about their own experience, with discussing, with their own failures, their own rejections, their own issues, as well as, um, maybe examples that they've had in which they've discussed that with um, non-artists. We all I've said before, we all have those moments where we sit down with somebody and what do you do and who are you, and and you say, well, I have this job, and but I am this thing. This is what I do. And um, I think a lot of times that gets muddled with the standard definition of what is a hobby. You know, um, I am a writer. I've always been a writer. but I have a job, I have a life, we have things that we have to maintain, and still try to fit our art in there, you know, because it's who we are, but the goal for any artist is to be able to, we all have different measures of success, which is another thing that we're going to discuss on here with artists. But um I think we all would love to be able to live, exist off of our art and the thing that we make and for other people. So I think that this is the point of the show is to talk to other artists, different various stages in their creative journeys, different experiences, things like that, and try to have a conversation for anyone that may be interested. Um, yeah. So um, one of the things, um, I think a failures and rejections are a big part of that. I mean, there is no art or creativity that doesn't have, roadblocks, hurdles, or failures. There's no form of creativity that doesn't have, and we're not talking about like systematic failures or hurdles. We're not talking about like, I mean, we are talking about those. Those are things that we will discuss, but we're talking about even failures within yourself. Failures with, you know, um, imposter syndrome is a big one for me. It kills me. We're going to talk about that a lot. Um, how when you fail, how do you continue to work on your art? How do you continue to be a creative, and what drives you to continue to do that? And if you haven't, if you've quit, if you've that, we want to destigmatize that. We want to take the pain out of quitting, because I mean, it sucks. It sucks. It sucks for anybody who's ever made something and put themselves out there and been told no. It sucks. I mean, there isn't a lot of things to compare that feeling to. And um, we want to talk about that. I, I mentioned imposter syndrome. We're going to talk about that a lot. How does it affect an artist? When does it affect you the most? That's a big one for me. That's a big one for me. Um, so we just want to have, see if we can get some artists on here. It doesn't matter, various stages of careers. You can be successful living off your art, you can be struggling off your art, you can be retired off your art, you could, maybe you don't do your art anymore for, all these reasons that we're going to talk about. um just I want to have conversations, anecdotal stories from creators and artists, all different kinds, um that may be useful to listener, to other artists themselves, to the artists even themselves, by way of having that discussion. And frankly, for myself, I mean, this is, you know, for me as well. I I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it is kind of one of those things where I kind of always wondered if I could do that, but you don't just, you know, want to talk to people. And this kind of seems like something that makes sense to me. It means something to me. So I want to talk to people who, have these same experiences that I have as a creative. So I mean, this is to help anybody that might need it. Um, so there's a structure to this show, points of topic, things that we're going to talk about. It's going to be less me talking, so you don't have to listen to this shit all the time. But it's going to be kind of a led structure. There will be conversations back and forth talk, but I want to hear from artists. I don't want to talk over artists. I want them to tell their stories. Um, the first episode is actually the first full episode is actually going to be, um, me running through my own structure, giving my own answers and anecdotes based on, kind of like a test episode. So, um, the way that this is going to work as well, I want to make sure that I put this out there, is the last test pilot is still there in podcast format. It's still in there in video format, and it's going to stay there. As these episodes occur, as we work through this with different artists, they're not live streamed. The first test pilot was live streamed. This is pre-recorded. I'm going to start pre-recording them for a live stream, but they will not be edited. Um, we are going to, in keeping with the theme of the show, you know, working through failures and rejections and mistakes. We're going to keep them there for posterity. We're going to put them out there and display them for because this is new to me too. I'm learning this as I go. So we're gonna put everything out there as it's recorded, as it's taken. You know, note to any artists that may want to um have this conversation. I'm not editing you. So um it's gonna be out there, all the bruises, warts, scars, and all. This show is just going out as it is, as it occurs, as it happens. And like I said, the first episode will be me running through my structure. Um, I'm planning on an hour episode, but it could run over. We could, depending on the conversation, depending on schedules and time, and again, this is another thing worked into my schedule because I have my day to day job, and um, I but then most of my time goes to my writing. Most of my free time, as much as my free time as I can writing. But we have 3 teenagers in the house. It's a fucking mess, but it's a good mess. It's a life mess. These are the messes that lives are, and those things inform our art, right? Our lives inform our art. Our experiences inform our art. So, I'm trying to work this in. The original test pilot went up on a Friday because I live streamed it. I'm actually thinking I may do the recording on a Sunday for Monday. So this will probably not be scheduled until um, tomorrow morning because it's Sunday. That would be Monday. I'm still not used to this. Um, so by the time this comes out, I'll already be back on my day-to-day job work schedule. So it's a lot. So if I miss that schedule or don't fit within it, then you know if somebody comes running through here or dogs start barking or shit, just if the madhouse acts like a madhouse, it's probably a fucking madhouse. Anyway, um so if you're an artist, I'm on all social medias. Find me on YouTube or Twitch, or these are going everywhere. So Facebook, live streaming everywhere that I can, because I'm using Restream to send all this out, and my computer just logged. My computer just locked on me. My computer locked on me. In case you didn't hear that, it just picked back up again. So I'm not sure if that cut out or not. So hopefully we're good. There's some of those warts we were talking about. Um, so if you're an artist and you want to have a conversation, we're going to do. I can send you an invite to a video. We'll sit down and have a conversation. We can schedule it. We can do whatever. One thing I'm going to do for every artist up here in the corner, that's my bio site. It's just a link to all my shit. everywhere. So if when I'm talking with any artist, we're going to put their shit up there. So we're going to put like, if you have a Patreon, if you have social media, whatever, we're going to stick it up there. So anybody that we're talking to on the podcast version, it'll have all your links in the show notes. So anybody that I'm talking to can get support for their art there. They can get, their portfolio put there, whatever you want to put there. So if just message me, DM me. I think my email's on there somewhere. Just however. And we'll schedule some time. We'll sit down and talk. I've got 2 guests lined up already so far. Full disclosure, the first one is, other than doing this myself, the first one is my brother. Um, he's my big little brother because he's my little brother, but he's better at shit than I am, and um, he's gonna help me overcome all my anxieties with this process here and be my first interviewee. But he is also an excellent photographer and artist and painter and fucking everything. Um, so we're gonna, make sure everybody's info gets put on the live stream in the show notes for the podcast version, and I think that hopefully, if this runs its course and doesn't go anywhere, then it runs its course and doesn't go anywhere. We fucking try. But my hope is that there are a lot of artists out there who don't have their opportunity to have these conversations, or a lot of people out there that want to hear these conversations. Maybe they've given up on their art and they, you know, regret that and they want to get back into it. Or maybe you're not even an artist, but are curious about what's behind the curtain, so to speak. I think I've said everything that I needed to say here, and I don't want to create any more of those bruises or warts than need be. So I'm checking my show notes, make sure I covered everything. I've been working on my radio voice last time. That shit was terrible. I was mumbling. I mumble. I probably still am mumbling. But we're getting there. I'll get better at it. We'll get better at it. Um, I don't want to talk to anybody I want to talk to everybody, but you don't have to be a seasoned video streamer or whatever. You, I just want artists. I want creatives, people that make things. And whether you consider yourself successful or not is irrelevant because we're talking about your experiences. And they don't have to be negative, but I think that what generally we consider negative is part of the learning process. Failure and rejection is, um, Ray Bradbury once said that, to paraphrase, I believe, you're only a failure if you quit writing. I think that applies to all artists. You're only a failure if you quit. Um, but the caveat to that is that I don't necessarily think that that makes you a failure. I think that that just makes you hurt because it hurts. It sucks. I've talked about this before. Um, Creating something and putting everything into it and putting it out there for the world and being told no is fucking devastating. And I really want to talk about that more with people. I want to destigmatize that because it is, while it does suck, it is part of the process. It is part of the creative process, and it's how we grow. And I think that is probably actually it. So I'm going to probably end this. I plan on having an outro, fucking whatever. Anyway, thanks for spending the time with me here for a short little bit. Um, if you did, um, and I guess that's it. Thanks. How do you end this? Okay. I'm gonna hit a button. Thanks. Thanks.